My friends, good evening. While watching the conference of the Party's 30 meeting in Brazil, I was just wondering if ecology isn't slowly dying a natural death. First of all, the first consideration I'd like to share with you is that I'm stuck. I'm telling you everything. You know that in Europe, as soon as you have an opinion that goes against any official authority, it could be a civil servant, it could also be a big company, a bank, anyone, a politician, a female politician. As soon as you have a contrary opinion, well, you're considered a conspiracy theorist. To avoid being labeled a conspiracy theorist, you usually need to be conformist and obedient. When your lords change their minds, you change yours too. So the problem is as follows. It's that, we have Macron's opinion, Keir Starmer's opinion, the King of England's opinion, and also his offspring who will replace him at some point. We are in the final stage of global warming. Humanity has a few days to act, otherwise we will all die when the oceans start to boil. And the solution will come through a liberating payment we have to pay, right? There you go, good people. That's how you save yourselves from the climate curse. You have to reach into your pocket and pay your lords who will protect you, right? As I told you, managing the climate, there was just a faucet somewhere, like turning a shower knob. Turn right to heat, turn left to cool. I guarantee you that the government services would find a way to break it or turn it the wrong way, even if you poured billions on them. So that's the problem I have. It's that we have this narrative that I just mentioned from the authorities, from various leaders in Europe, right? Including crowned heads. At the same time, we have the American administration, which says that through Trump, who is also an official authority, he's the president of the United States, the sitting president. So he's someone who is extremely well informed. He has access to state secrets. He has access to a huge administration. He has access to intelligence agencies. Nothing is hidden from him, and he says it's a scam. He doesn't go. What am I supposed to do now? What do I do? Look, if I believe one of them, regardless of who's wrong or right, you see that these are two opinions that can't be reconciled. If I believe one, I am automatically a conspiracy theorist in the other person's world. I can't resist the temptation to tell you a little story. Maybe I should tell this in the channel about Islam at some point. There used to be, in the past, there was a caliph, right? And then there was another claimant to the caliphate, and then, I don't remember the names, but anyway, they killed each other. One killed the other, you see? And then on the grave of the dead man, they wrote, "Here lies our Lord so-and-so, who was killed by our Lord such and such." I mean, there is clearly one killed the other, so one must be right and one must be wrong. The dead man might be the victim, or maybe the one who killed him was just defending himself in a case of self-defense. And the other would then be a sinister scoundrel. But no, both are our lords, so I have a problem with that. I have Lord Macron who says we're going to die from global warming, and I have Lord Trump who says all of this is a scam. What am I supposed to do? Stuck in the middle. All right, you see? Anyway, what's great is that at this conference of the Party's 30 meeting that took place, by the way, let me quickly tell you the circumstances. It took place in Brazil. They cleared part of the Amazon jungle to build a road, just so that this lordship could deign to attend, to come and discuss our future, you see, and the future of the planet. They came by private jet, Boeing, Airbus, and they also rented cruise ships that they parked offshore there in the harbor, you see, so they could party and sleep and everything. After those exhausting discussions, so the United States did not give in. The United States completely disregarded it. They said, we're not going. China didn't go. India, Modi didn't go. He sent a representative, but he himself didn't go. Meanwhile, countries like the United Kingdom, where climate is almost a religion and climate theology prevails, usually send many delegates, though I'm not sure how many they sent this time. They're used to sending the largest delegation. At the last conference of the parties, I think it was in Azerbaijan, right? They had sent 470 people. Several planes arrived with British delegates. They're therefore, so just to reassure you, since many people will say yes, even if they're wrong about the climate, it's still good for the environment. No, let me reassure you, Conference of the Parties 30 is about economics, not the environment, economic discussions. Some countries criticize themselves. Today, it's the Europeans. Americans and Chinese have already given up. Many countries, by the way, are no longer committing. Previously, countries made commitments. Now, no one bothers except the usual suspects, the guilty ones like France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. They're countries that come and whip themselves like that, like, go ahead, hit us, it's our fault. So what the Europeans are doing, they go to Conference of the Parties 30 and they say, well, let me sum it up for you. The problem today is that it's our fault that you have undesirable climate events in your country. So whether it's drought or flooding, wind, no wind, cold, rain, snow, whatever you want, any climate or weather event that you consider undesirable, we are to blame. Our people are at fault, and we're going to make them pay. They're going to have to pay. Pay how? We're going to tax their energy to the point where their work becomes useless. They'll have to shut down their businesses. When a business closes in France or London, you know that the production from that company isn't just going to disappear. It'll simply be created somewhere else. Humanity will always need those products. So it's not that, yes, sometimes from time to time we might end up with products that are outdated, that nobody needs anymore, there's no market. Well, that explains it. But it's rare for companies to be in that situation because businesses usually adapt and evolve with the times. But when you have extremely expensive energy, you have environmental regulations on your back, you have social regulations on your back. How are you supposed to compete with Chinese, Thai, and Indian factories? What do? They flood the markets. They even sell right in front of your place. They even come into your country without any customs barriers and sell. What do? You can't survive, you can't exist. But that's not design, that's not. So there are people, I often see them say, yes, but the authorities don't know, they're stupid, we need to wake them up, we need to protest, we need to write to them. No, it's pointless to write to them, they're doing this intentionally. It's built to be like this, you see, it's by design, you know? So they go there, beat themselves up, and they say, well, we have to save the climate. So what happens is that the countries from the south come there with the victim card. Because you have to know that nowadays victimization can literally be traded on the stock market, you see. So with a victim card, before the card was, for example, slavery, for example, colonialism. Well, even if these cards do have a certain merit, let's say, except that after a while, after using them many times, that's the problem with the victim card. The more you use it, the more it loses. It loses its aura, it loses its power, its impact. Many southern countries are banana republics or dictatorships run by corrupt, violent, and brute leaders, often with mustaches, you see? Well, what do these countries do? They come to demand climate justice. When I say climate justice, I mean cash, I mean money. That's what they're coming to ask for. They're coming to ask for money. And they're facing Europeans who tell them, yes, you're right, we're going to give you money. And so that creates rights to compensation. So they come with a new victim card, which is the climate card. So there you go. And from there, it all started. We're going to fuel these demands and we're going to have to face them and pay until the day when Europe is ruined in a final, permanent, and lasting way. At that point, people will move on to something else. That's all. Thank you for taking part in the climate stories. Well, now you're ruined. Not only are you not interested, but we're not interested in the climate either. It's just a period. But that's it. It's over. That's where Europeans are headed, toward final ruin. And what's happening, I'll tell you maybe directly. I've said it many times, but sometimes it needs to be repeated. There is no climate emergency, okay? There's absolutely nothing at all. Not even a hint of reality in that. The Earth, if you look at it from we're talking about science, hard science here, not opinions. If you look, it was much colder in the past. It was much hotter in the past. The ocean waters were lower, they have been higher in the past. And I'm talking about centuries, I'm talking about millennia. That's the life of the Earth. At times, there were more glaciers or wetter conditions than at others. That's normal, usually caused by solar activity. So you can take a country, I don't know, let's say you take a country like France, you could flatten it from end to end. Honestly, you could bulldoze it and turn it into a giant parking lot or turn it into whatever you want. It won't change a thing. I guarantee you it won't change a thing. You'll go in August to Antalya, it'll be 40 degrees. Just because France doesn't exist doesn't mean it'll be -5 degrees in Antalya in summer. That I can tell you, it won't change a thing for the planet. The planet will keep turning, that's all. You will have sacrificed and destroyed your country. So before anyone says, I remember when I was a child. All right, let me tell you something. The climate in a given place changes during the day, depending on the night. It changes according to the seasons. The seasons, that's what day and night, and the seasons, that's what a normal person has the most experience with. We know January in Europe is cold and July is hot. We notice this happening often in life and start to realize it. You should know there are longer cycles, some lasting much longer. Some cycles last 10, 15, 50, 100, or even 1,000 years, and their overlap creates variations. Sometimes there are years that are warmer than others, or sometimes there are even decades that are warmer or colder than others. So when you have your experience, when you were a child and it was warmer or colder, yes, that's normal. There's nothing to worry about. It's not your fault. And let me tell you something. You won't fix it by paying your government. Okay, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to people who are in North Korea, because in North Korea, once I saw a documentary where there was a guitar in a museum. And why was it in a museum? Because the guide was explaining to the tourists that it had been seen by the supreme leader. Someone tried to correct him, asking, did he play it or was it his guitar? No, he saw it. He passed by, he saw the guitar. Well, it deserved to go to a museum because it caught his eye. So I'm telling you how much they consider their leaders as deities. We're not far from that in Europe, by the way, but there you go, just to tell you, despite everything, they don't think Mr. Kim controls the Earth's climate. You can pour in as much money. By the way, let me tell you something. You don't have to take my word for it. Just you take the other problems of the neighborhood, the other problems of everyday life. You take the other roles. You take the roles of the state, right? Look how much it costs, okay? You look at how much it costs and you look at how much money has been swallowed up by the state and tell me if it's effective. That's all. That's the question I'm asking you. Does the state seem effective to you? That's all. The state, whatever it touches, it messes up. Whatever it touches, it destroys. That's all. There you go. Well, you know my anti-state leanings. I'm not going to... Some call me a liberal, others an anarchist, but that's it, okay? It comes down to the same thing at some point. Everyone, all these people end up meeting. There's always a meeting point between different intellectual and political paths. Always a point of reason where we can meet. And the point today, my friends, is that the conference of the Parties 30 meeting in Brazil, honestly, aside from some Europeans flagellating themselves in front of people from the third world, honestly, there's not much to it. Frankly, I'm telling you, there's not much. Anyway, I'll let you read my book, Astrology. It's available on Amazon. And honestly, I keep telling you, Europe was created by... Recently, I'm talking about modern Europe. Well-being in Europe is the result of the Industrial Revolution. Take the United Kingdom, for example. It's the first country to have industrialized. And also what's terrible today is that it's the first country to deindustrialize. It's awful because these countries don't have a solution B, don't have a plan B, don't have we're deindustrializing. And then no, there's no solution behind that. There's just deindustrialization. And then, well, after that, there's nothing, okay? It's just the end. That's it. We're going to suffer. Let me tell you something. When you look at the certain circuits of thinking, of artificial intelligence, for whatever that's worth, you see that There's something, it's that it tries to mimic human intelligence. And human intelligence has weights, biases. That means when we want to do something, we have a weight, even if we don't realize it consciously. We have a price to pay. We have a maximum price to pay. You see, look, let me give you an example. If a stranger falls into the water, as has happened before, and I judge that it's too dangerous to save them, that I might end up going with them, there's no law that obliges me to take a risk to save them, to put myself in danger. I probably won't risk myself to save them, but I'll call the authorities. I'll call the Coast Guard or the lifeguards who are more skilled than me, better equipped, better trained. They'll save them. So that happened to me once. Someone was drowning. I called the lifeguards and they came and saved them, okay? I thought it was better than risking both of us staying there by going in myself with such rough seas, you see? But let me give you another example. Why did I think like that? If you look closely in the neural network that made this decision, it was important for me to save this person. At the same time, there was a weight, a limit, a maximum price. Without a maximum price, you can't think. All thinking collapses. So in all our everyday decisions, even if it's not stated explicitly, we constantly operate with a certain number of maximum weights that we assign to our decisions or to our desires or to our will and all that. And if you look closely, very often people who drift, people who do anything, are people who have incorrect weights. You'll find people who make decisions, but you say to yourself, that's not possible. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? And you realize if you analyze it from the perspective of weights or costs, you'll see that they associated too high a cost. See, they're paying too much. It's like saying this criminal killed someone for 20 euros. He assigned a cost to those 20 euros, potentially valuing them above a human life. You see, but that's an extreme case I took. But you can have plenty of cases every day, more subtle than these somewhat caricatured examples. And you'll see that the misuse of reflection weights, of reflection masses, can cause disasters. It can completely, it's a fine-tuning of the brain that we need. If you tune your brain precisely, you'll be able to give the right weights to the right decisions. If your weights fluctuate wildly, it's a disaster, in any case. But let me give another example. If my child falls into the water, what will I do? My kid falls in, you see? I immediately jumped in after them. Why? Because I assigned to their life an infinite weight, you see? Someone might argue, but what he did was dangerous. He risked his life and nearly died, or did die. Except what happened is that it wasn't handled by normal thinking, but by thinking based on infinite weights. That's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. When in everyday life, as state decision makers, people assign infinite masses, infinite factors to certain paths or neural pathways of thinking, it's absolutely a disaster. And actually, one of them is this story of it's runaway, it's ideological runaway. In ideological runaway, there's a magnifying glass through which a kind of vicious circle which people get into. And actually, in that circle, what happens is that you have infinite weight given to things. And so you have people who have no limits. They want to achieve something for ideological reasons, but the level of sacrifice they're willing to accept or consent to has no limit in their eyes. They're willing to do anything. If they have to impoverish, look, if these people cause 100 million deaths in Europe tomorrow, just tell them, you caused 100 million deaths. They'll say, yes, but you shouldn't see it that way. We saved 200 million. You get my point? These stories are terrible. Anyway, my friends, we're coming to the end of this video. Thank you for watching.